to the first ever episode of the Gark Show. We will be previewing the NBA Finals in this episode, and we are featuring special guest Mo Eltahir.
Hi guys.
So to start us off, we're here at the NBA Finals, and we're back right where we were last year. Heat-Spurs. There are a bunch of teams that it seemed had a good chance to rise up and challenge these two heavyweights. We thought the Clippers might do it. We thought KD and the Thunder might do it. We thought the Pacers might take the Heat down. But we're back where we were last June. So what are your guys' thoughts on the conference finals?
I don't think anybody's really surprised. From the beginning of the regular season, all the preseason picks were mostly Spurs Heat. So I think everything went down the way it was gonna. To me, it was a little bit disappointing that this series is the individual series is both the Pacers and the Thunder weren't able to push it to go 7.
I think what stood out to me was the shortcomings of both the losers. Both the Thunder and the Pacers were teams that people expected would break out and hit the next level, and neither of them show that they're capable of doing it.
Right.
And I think it shows that both those teams need another piece to really put them over the top, and so that they can actually compete against the Heat and the Spurs.
I don't know. For me, I didn't even feel like, at least in the case of the Thunder, maybe the Pacers, but I didn't even feel like the Thunder needed another piece. I feel like they just needed, yet again, for Kevin Durant to really step up, to take it to that next level, to have one of those really transcendent games. You know what I mean?
And the series might have gone differently, certainly if Ibaka weren't out the first 2 games, but yeah. I disagree in the fact that I think in Game 6 the Spurs bench outscored the Thunder bench 51-5, and Durant did not have the series he could have had, but certainly adding a few more bench pieces would make the Thunder really tough to deal with. So that when KD went out, they still had some primary scoring options out on the floor. So, and I also see that. I also think that this might really be the end of the road for the Pacers. I felt like there was so much build-up after last year's conference finals, and it just seems that they're a flawed team. Yeah. No bench, no go-to scorer. Paul George is not consistent enough to be that guy, and it's kind of too bad because there's so much build-up after last year's conference finals. It seemed like they really might finally do it this year, but I think they're too flawed to ever take.
Was like, oh, this is Paul George's breakout series, but then this whole, even in the regular season, ever since, February, they've just kind of flatlined, and it's been really disappointing to be watching the Pacers last couple months.
I think at this point, for Pacers management, they have to decide, are they content being a really good team that, as long as LeBron is in the East, they're not really going to make it to the finals, or are they willing to blow it up and say, this isn't championship caliber, we need to move on.
And given that Larry Bird is the executive in Indiana, one of the most competitive players of all time, I think it's hard to see them being content with just being good, but they have a lot of reworking to do, a lot of big decisions to make.
He actually released a statement, maybe I think it was today, where he said he doesn't think they really need major roster overhaul, but honestly, I don't believe it. I think the Pacers need a major change. I think a Hibbert trade maybe is in line. I'm not sure. What type of changes do you guys think? Because I think they need to keep Paul George, but I think they need to add someone who can maybe score a little bit more.
Right. Well, go ahead. My biggest question is, do they re-sign Stevenson in the offseason? Because for all of his shenanigans with LeBron in that series, the blowing in the ear, the touching his mouth, etc., he showed a lot of confidence, taking threes in LeBron's face, trash talking, and he's certainly an impact player. He's maybe not a player you want to rely on, but he's certainly an impact player. So do you think they should try and bring him back? Or
I love Stevenson. He's honestly probably my top 5 favorite players in the NBA right now, because he plays the game as close to being that old-fashioned style as you really can. If you look back at tape of the Detroit Bad Boys, how they were kind of rough. They were always doing whatever they could to get that mental edge to kind of knock their opponents off their game. And I feel like a lot of people are saying, oh, he's crossing the line, but he's just joking around. If you look at stuff they were doing in the Jordan era, late 80s, early 90s, there was some real competitive play. And I feel like what Lance Stephenson's doing doesn't really deviate from that much.
I think that while Stevenson is a great player and I think he fits very well in the Pacers, I do not think they should re-sign him because I think what the Pacers really need is a pure scorer and someone who can help them out on the offensive end. And while Stevenson is a very good offensive player, he's not the kind of team that you can really rely. He's not the type of player that you can really rely on. And so I think the Pacers are better off investing their money somewhere else.
A pure scorer, or since he's going to be getting such a big contract, take the money you would have spent on him and get 2 or 3 low price but quality bench players, because that bench can't be relying on Luis Scola and Jan Mahimi if they're going to beat the Heat. So
I mean, I would say just go back to your point, like re-sign Stevian, but with a caveat. Like if he's asking for like $10 million a year, let some other chump which he probably will be. Let like Charlotte or someone who has that type of cap space sign him. Like I think Larry Bird is too smart to blow that type of money on someone like Stevenson who isn't that reliable.
All right, we're gonna.
So like Mark said earlier, we kind of back where we started last year, and not a lot has changed, but at the same time a lot has changed. It's kind of weird, but for me the biggest change that has happened is with the Miami Heat team. Everyone's just kind of gone like this. Like I couldn't really name you a single Miami Heat player who's made a market improvement over last year, and I feel like although the Spurs haven't made huge leaps and bounds, a couple of the players like Manu Ginobili have actually made improvements. So I think definitely if you're looking at last year versus this year, I think the Spurs kind of have the edge in improvement-wise. What do you guys think?
I think that when you look at the supporting cast of Miami, they're even more reliant on LeBron than they have been in the past. A lot of guys have kind of taken a step down, like Shane Battier, who's one of the most important players for the Heat last year, has taken a step back. Like Udonis Haslem just has not been as reliable as before, and it puts an extra burden on LeBron and Wade and Bosh to carry the team.
And the other thing is that people don't really think about is with guys like Haslem, and like they had Joel Anthony a couple years back, although he got traded around. The thing with guys like that is, although they were never impact players, you could stick them in the paint for a solid 10 minutes a game each, and they would both be able to like absorb a couple of fouls, you know what I mean? Whereas now you kind of have to have the key players like LeBron and Chris Bosh like taking up those fouls in the paint, and that actually comes up big once you get to like the second half of the third and fourth quarter.
Right, I think Battier's regression is huge. He was huge in the finals from them last year, draining threes from the corner. And also, he was the guy they could always stick on the other team's best offensive player without having to tire out LeBron, so LeBron could focus on his offense. Yeah. But this year against the Thunder, we see LeBron guarding Durant the whole game, for instance, and the Spurs maybe don't have the same kind of impact wing player who demands that sort of attention. But even so, LeBron's going to be running around a bit more this series, maybe chasing Danny Green, getting tired out, and so I think Battier's absence will have a big impact.
And I definitely think that might be a strategy that the Spurs might be trying to go after, like hitting LeBron with like a few different defensive assignments, trying to get him like tired out as soon as possible, because like through the regular season, LeBron really did carry that Miami Heat team. Like he had to drag them to like I would say a good like 10-15 of their wins. So it was like
I think this Heat team is looking a little bit more like LeBron's Cavaliers teams in that in the past LeBron would almost be a luxury at times for the Heat. Obviously he's always the most important player on the floor, but they could go stretches where role players were draining threes and they were having great ball movement, and there are some stretches this year where it seems they just have to hand LeBron the ball and step back and let him do his thing, which is a little bit of a weakness with this team.
Yeah, it's really important for the rest of the Miami team to step up. I mean, LeBron, there's only so much he can do. Like 3-point shooting is a really big part of the Heat's offense, and so far in the playoffs, the only player who's really stood out is Rashard Lewis in terms of supporting cast players for the Heat. So, like Ray Allen is really going to have a big series.
Yeah, I think he had a big quarter late in the Pacers series, but it's going to take a lot more than that. Also, Wade deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah.
I mean, they've rested him all year. He was huge.
Yeah.
He shot, I believe, 55%
honestly,
in that last
like,
series.
Wade better be playing good at this point
Right.
because he pretty much got a paid vacation through the regular season.
Yeah.
It was kind of excessive at some points. Like if he had like a little, like his little toe was aching
Sure.
him. DNP for Dwayne Wade. I really feel like the pressure's on right now for Wade to like prove that he's still worth it. You know what I mean?
One area where the Heat might be a little better than last year, though, is that this year they kind of just really took it easy during the regular season. They won 54 games, which is really good, but for a team like the Heat, it's not what you'd expect.
In that conference.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Eastern Conference.
But
It's like the Euro League. Just here.
Terrible. Yeah.
If you look back at last year, though, like they put in so much energy on that really long 27-game win streak.
Yeah, that's true.
So one area where the Heat are improved is that they're better rested.
Yeah.
Plus, they've lost 3 playoff games this year.
I mean, if you look at kind of like the playoff schedule, the regular season, you see they went 1-1 I think with the Spurs in the regular season. But one really interesting to look at is Chris Bosh actually scored 24 points in both games, which I thought was very interesting. Which kind of maybe says more about like the San Antonio defense, and they have like a lack of answers for Chris Bosh because. I mean, obviously, Tim Duncan's an all-time great Hall of Famer, but, like, he's not a perimeter defender, and Chris Bosh can really stretch the floor. So I think if Miami Heat's going to take him advantage anywhere, I think it's...
And then the Spurs, on the other hand, I mean, they seem to always just keep plugging along, getting their 50 wins every year. But I think this year we've seen a bigger change in the Spurs than we've seen in past seasons. Every year, the big three of Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili gets older. They lessen their burden, and this year they spread the minutes out. They were the first modern NBA team where no player played more than 30 minutes a game, which is remarkable. Yes, Mo, really? So you guys have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I think all credit goes to Greg Popovich, really. I mean, a lot of people forget he's not only their coach, but he's the president of basketball operations. And him and the GM for the Spurs are pretty cozy, but he's really the one making all the final calls and all the final decisions. And I think you really have to attribute him for bringing in a lot of key bench players that have really eased the burden on the big three. I mean, first you have he brought in Bellinelli from the Chicago Bulls this offseason, which has been spectacular, shooting 43 from 3 points, which is mind blowing. And then
I think 6th in the NBA this year.
Yeah, and then he won the 3-point contest. Remember that. And then the other big addition is Kawhi Leonard, who they drafted masterstroke, 2011 NBA drafts, had guys like Kyrie and a bunch of other guys coming off early in the board, but they actually got Kawhi Leonard at pick number 22, I think it was. And he's developed into probably one of the better perimeter defenders.
He's only 22.
Yeah,
which
22.
Is kind of hard to.
And I think it's a great call from Greg Popovich, but B, just a testament to his ability to coach. You know.
I think a lot of times we think of Parker as the new superstar of the Spurs, but they really showed in their last game against Oklahoma City that they don't actually depend on Parker entirely. He was hurt in the second half, and Patty Mills stepped up, and the Spurs ended up pulling out that game. So, while it might seem like Parker and Duncan are the center of the team, it's really just the entire team is critical to their success.
I've also thought Greg Popovich is a little bit like Bill Belichick in the sense that it seems like whenever a player goes out, that they can always just fill another player into that system, and that you gave a great example, Gabe, of Parker going down. That they can just plug Mills in seamlessly, I think they ran Ginobili at the point a lot too, but Mills is a really interesting player. He actually carried the Australian team in the 2012 London Olympics, making some buzzer-beating threes, and he just under Popovich, he's been huge this year. He was, I believe, 8th in the NBA in three-point percentage, so he's been another big addition for them.
I do think a lot of people have been talking about how, even without Tony Parker, you think the Spurs still have a good chance. I do think people aren't giving Tony Parker enough credit because although they did pull out Game 6 against the Thunder, I believe it was Boris Diaw, who had to score 26 points, and that's not going to happen every single game. So I think Parker returning, even if he doesn't come back at full strength, if he can put up 15 points a game, I still think that's huge for the Spurs.
Let's cut that section, I think. Yeah.
So, when we look at this series, I think that one of the keys for the Heat is going to be playing really good team defense. As we were talking about before, the Spurs have such a deep team with so many different weapons, but there's not really one offensive player that they focus on.
Yeah.
So there's not really one key defensive player for the Heat. It's more that everybody steps up and they have really good rotations and play as a team.
Yeah, I think one thing about the Spurs offense that is really tough for teams to react to is the ability of their big men to pass.
Yeah.
Duncan is great at this. Splitter is great at this, and Diaw is great at this. And teams are all about keeping teams off the three-point line and then protecting the paint, because those are the two most efficient areas. And when so often with the Spurs, you see the ball get swung into a big man, and teams just crash the paint, and then the big man immediately does a touch pass or just rifles it out to the three-point line, and you have all these players running in the wrong direction. And I think the Heat are, protecting the paint is important, but sometimes letting Tim Duncan go one-on-one with in the post against Norris Cole or whatever is worth it if it means not allowing corner threes for Bellinelli or wing threes from Danny Green, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think especially with Danny Green, because if you let him just early sink a couple of open threes, this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but the game's over. Once he gets hot, he can really, we saw it last year with I think it was Game 3 or so. He just completely took over.
It's huge in the finals last year. Yeah, definitely. If you're looking at keys for the Spurs, what else can it be but how to contain the best player on earth? How are they going to deal with LeBron?
With LeBron James, I feel like it's really. I think it's going to be Kawhi. I think they're going to at least on the defensive side, they're going to stick Kawhi on him, because Kawhi is a very athletic player. Obviously, no one can match the athleticism of LeBron James, but Kawhi's the closest that they'll have on that team, and I think they just have to stick him on LeBron and try to although obviously Kawhi Leonard isn't going to shut down LeBron. He can't keep him locked down. If he can keep LeBron from having one of those huge 35-plus point games, then I think he will have done his job very effectively.
Yeah. I think, the key is just to contain him. You can't stop him, but if LeBron's not scoring 30 points a night, you're doing a good job and you're putting the pressure on the rest of the Heat to step up. So
one thing that surprised me about the Spurs Thunder series though was that I thought Leonard would be all over Durant, but the Spurs also stuck Danny Green on Durant a fair amount, which is an interesting matchup, and it freed Leonard later in the series to contain Westbrook, who was running all over the place. So I would be interested to see if the Spurs consider trying sticking Green and maybe Boris Diaw, who, believe it or not, guarded LeBron in the finals for a bit last year, sticking one of those two guys on LeBron, and then that would free up Leonard to guard, say, Dwayne Wade, and potentially keep him from having another huge series. So,
for me, I kind of feel like the strategy you want to take with Kevin Durant and the strategy you want to take with LeBron James is very different, because Kevin Durant, although he's not a super aggressive player, he'll look for his shot first. He's not the type of player who with the mentality where every single possession he's gonna go in for the layup. And I feel like LeBron's got more of that killer mentality where he's just gonna try to bully everyone and get into the paint. So I feel like maybe you do kind of want to have your best athlete on LeBron at all times. But it'll be interesting to see what they try.
Yeah. Last year what the Spurs also did against LeBron was just sag off him as much as possible and dare him to take threes. Yeah. Because that's never LeBron's instinct. It's so rare that you see.
There's that one game where he went 5 for 10 from three. But honestly, you gotta prefer that to having him go maybe score 35 points on just 10 shots or something.
Sure. There are going to be games where he'll hurt you from deep. That's probably the aspect of his game that he's improved the most over the course of his career. Yeah. But he shot 75% in the paint this year, which is easily the best mark in the NBA. He leads the NBA in that stat just about every year, and I think the Spurs should pursue the same strategy of sagging off LeBron and trying to limit the damage he can do in the paint.
As the series goes on, I think one stat that's going to be most indicative of how well the Spurs are doing with this is free throws, free throw attempts.
Yeah.
Because if the more that LeBron gets in the paint, the more free throws he's going to be shooting, and that's, I think, really when the Heat are at their best. When they just have tons and tons of free throws, because it gets the Spurs in foul trouble, and it slows down the game, but it's very efficient for
Creates frustration with the refs
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.